Hello guys, and welcome to my channel again. So in this video I'm going to show you how to create dynamic inputs in Vue JS. So this is what I'm talking about. So you can see you have a simple form here where you have the first name, last name, and then the font. So let's say that you want to enable the functionality where the user can enter more than one font. So they can be just click on the button like this and add an input field dynamically like that. So how do you achieve this in Vue JS? Okay, so it is so simple, and that is what I'm going to talk about in this video. Okay, so let me just show you this let me just show you the code that renders this form here. You can see here I have a simple HTML file, and then I am using Bootstrap 5 CDN here, that is the CSS, and also I am using the font awesome. So font awesome library, of course, it is for these icons, and then I'm using Vue JS CDN. So I'm using the Vue JS CDN link. So that's and then of course this Bootstrap, so just simple Bootstrap, and I have the form here. And the form, you have the first input, which is the first name, and the second input, which is the last name, and then you have the fonts here. So I'm going to explain to you how it works. All right, so that's it. That's all about the form, and then you can just go to the Vue.js instance. So this is basically why I'm just instantiating Vue.js here, and then using this I'm just mounting the Vue.js inside the app ID. Okay, the app ID, that is the container with an ID of app, which is this one here, so that Vue.js can work inside this form. Okay, so how do you achieve that functionality? So let me just remove the code so that I can show you. So let's just start here. So let's say that we have just the fonts and like that, meaning that we have just one input field. Okay, meaning that you just have this one input field here. Let me show you. So let's just remove. You're not going to remove, you're commenting out so that I can show you. So let me just remove this. And then I can see here we can do some data binding. Okay, let me comment out this thing. The best way to do is to comment out the entire thing, but then copy this input field. So let me just copy that, and what I'm going to do is to comment out this one here, this up to here, I think. And then so I have the form, this form here, and then you have the font, and then we have two-way data binding. So I'm binding using Vue model to the font. So let me just remove that to the font. So I have to make sure that in the data object here, I have the font here. So we have the two-way data binding, meaning that if, let me refresh here. So if the font changes, it will also change in the data. So let me just show you. If I go to the Vue tools and I have installed Vue tools here, so if I just go to the Vue, we can have we can look at the, okay, we have an error there. That is the console, but then I'm just targeting the Vue. So if we go inside the root here, you can see inside the data object you have these three fields, and you have, if we write here the font, you see it changing right here. Okay, so you have we have two-way data binding. This input fields are linked to this to the data object inside the Vue instance. So what you want to do, this when you are using just one input field, but you want to dynamically change or add the input. So the first thing you have to do is to make this one to be a group, an object. Okay, so you can just make it an array of objects. So like that, and then let's add the first object, and we just I call the font. So each object is going to contain a font, right? Or one font. So you can just say that. So this like one input, one font input, right? And we save that. Now since these fonts, we can just now call them fonts. Since these fonts, this it's an object. It's an array of objects. We can loop through and display each as independent input. Okay, so that's why, and that is how do we loop through it then. Now let me just remove this. Now let me just comment out this so that I can show you. So we use v4. Okay, v4 for let's say we want to loop through an array of objects. You can say that v4 like you can say like this v4 v for font in fonts, but remember, yeah, these are inputs, so we're just taking them as input. That's why I'm just saying that v for v font in fonts, that is basically looping through how you loop through objects or array of objects in Vue or array of items. Okay, but then you need index. That's why you can see I'm saying I'm just doing for inputs for we have the input, and then we also want to get the index in font. So we'll get that specific input or font, and then we are going to get it as index. And so we have a key, of course, has to be linked. We have a key. It is not it's optional, but then if you don't include it, it's going to throw an error just to identify that specific element as unique. And then I'm just basically doing the font input, and then this is JavaScript where I'm just concatenating the index of that specific item, right? And then after that, now this is going to be dynamic. So remember that if we do this, it is like it is going to loop through the fonts. So if I save this, for example, let me just save that and comment out these buttons and save. So if I go back here and refresh, you find that I have one input, and I have one because it is looping through this object of this array of font inputs, and it has only one item. So if I change this and I add another item right here, you'll see that we now have two input fields. You can see we now have two, but what you want to do is to do it dynamically, not to do it manually. Okay, so just remove that. And basically that's what we are doing. But then remember, we need the button so that when somebody clicks on a button, you can add, and when they click on remove button, you can remove. Okay, so that's why you have now these two buttons here. And these buttons are the ones that you are seeing here. So if I refresh now, you can see you have the add and then you have the remove. So what happens here is that we are looping through, and we have each item we are displaying as this input here. We are as independent input. So let's say that somebody clicks on the add button. So you can say I'm using here. I'm using the method we called add field, and I'm passing there the fonts. Okay, so I'm passing there the fonts, and I tell you why I'm doing that. And then you have when somebody clicks, we remove. We call this method remove field, and I'm passing there the index of that specific input or font, and then I'm passing there the fonts or the font inputs. Also, the font inputs, we said that basically it is this array of font objects or inputs, whatever you want to call them. Yeah. Now let's look at the add field. Okay. Let's look at the add font. And basically now you can see you have the fonts. So basically these fonts you can get them by adding, or you can just get them using these dot fonts. All right, just the same thing. You can just do like add font. You can just do this dot fonts dot push. So you are using push, and you know that the array method push is it adds an element to the stack. Okay, it adds an element on top of the element of the element that exists in that specific container. So basically you can see that when this method is called, it takes the fonts and then it adds an empty object. Just what we are doing, just like manually we can just add an object, like we can just do an empty object like that. It's going to be independent input field. Okay, so basically that is what this add method is doing. You're just adding and we are adding an object here, and that object is going to stand for an independent input. Okay, so since we are looping through this, if we add the objects we add here are going to be inputs. Okay, but then you're doing it programmatically. That's why this is what this add method is doing. So it is basically adding input fields here, or objects here, that stands for or represents input fields. And then you have the remove. So the remove, you can say you pass there the index of that specific item, and then you have the fonts, or this one here. And now you can use the same thing. You can just use these dot fonts if you don't want to pass their fonts, and then you just splice. So splice arrays dot splice method, you know that what it does, it removes an item at a specific index, so a specific item. So if you do fonts dot splice and you're passing there the index of that specific input, it is going to remove one item. So you can see we specify that it should remove one item. So you are using the font dot splice, and you are removing that specific object. So let's say that we had added there like we had added there. Let me just go to the here, refresh, and add. So I have added all this. So this basically, if we open, you'll just see that they are, if we open this, and you can see the fonts, and basically they are empty objects. Okay, empty objects. But if we write there, if we start writing here, for example, here 07, and now you can see this object has now changed, and now we have that value. You can see font is equals to this. And why font? It is because we used Vue model. You've bound, or we've linked this specific font to, let me show you a Vue model. You can see Vue model is equals to input.font. Okay, so meaning that we have that inside that object we'll have an element font which is linked to linked to the data, to this fonts data array. Okay, so that is when you are adding. So when we are removing, what happens is that each item you see here, it has its own unique index. So in the remove method, we are passing their index. You can see the index is here. So we are getting the index of that specific element and removing it from the fonts, from this fonts array. You're just removing that object, and in sorting you are removing the input. So basically this is what you see here. So just removing, you get that specific index, and we are just removing one item from there. And that is how it works. So you can see if I click here, it removes that. And you can see even from here you can see when I click on here, it removes that specific item, it removes specific item. And if I click here, it adds. Okay, right, so that's it. And that's basically how you can you can do dynamic inputs using Vue JS. So I think that's it, and see you in the next one.